So we're talking Lake Winnipeg. Lake Winnipeg is personally one of my favorite destinations every ice season, and it is that way for a lot of people too, because it truly is one of the best places to catch a trophy walleye through the ice anywhere in the world. It's one of the largest freshwater bodies of water in the world, and it holds just that many trophy fish where your odds are just stacked in your favor every time you cut a hole up there. Couple things to know about Lake Winnipeg though. If you're headed up there, first thing that should be on your mind is the travel. How are you getting around up there? A common question we get in the store is, what are the lake conditions looking like? Because usually, depending on the year, you're looking at two ways of travel, whether wheeled traffic or track traffic. Most years, you're not going to get away with tires. Usually, if you got a side-by-side, you're going to want to look at putting tracks on there, look at going up there with some kind of sled or snowmobile, or even a snow bear is an option, whether you bring one up yourself or you're looking to rent one from a lot of the guides up there. No matter which way you're getting around the lake, mobility is your friend. Like we said, it's a massive body of water with large schools of fish, but there's a lot of dead water too. So constantly being able to move and be efficient to stay on top of those schools of fish is going to work in your favor to put a lot more fish topside for you. The other thing to keep in mind if you are planning a trip to Lake Winnipeg is can be brutal, and it's very hard on gear. A couple things I always make sure I have multiples of: augers, multiple houses, multiple heaters. You just never know if something's going to break or it just is flat out isn't going to work for you out in the cold, windy conditions. Always go up with an extension. Your back is really going to thank you. Maybe not on those first 10 holes, but those next 10 holes you drill, when you start talking 2.5, 3, sometimes even 4+ feet of ice up north, an extension is a must-have. Another thing you should always have on you is an extra set of blades, no matter what brand of auger you're running. Lake Winnipeg is notorious for dirty ice. It's very big, open water. When it freezes, common thing that you'll see is shard ice or broken ice with a lot of different ice layers, and that can have dirt mixed in with the water, gravel, rock that is blown off ashore during freeze up. Having sharp blades is a must when you're up at Lake Winnipeg. One lesson I learned the hard way personally is you should always bring a spare hose. Kind of forgotten connection, again, that's your lifeline between your heater and your actual fuel source. If you have either a busted hose, a leaking hose, that can be the difference between you having a long, successful day or even trip on ice, or having to pack it in early. So again, think about bringing multiples of everything. Heater hose should definitely be on your list. Now, when we talk about Lake Winnipeg gear, one thing I emphasize when you have to Lake Winnipeg is upsize everything. Specifically when we're talking about rods, a lot of my rods on fishing Lake Winnipeg are going to be in that 36 to 42 inch range. A longer rod gives you a lot more leverage throughout the fight. When you are fishing with barbless hooks, you're going to feel like you're horsing fish a bit more with a bit tighter drag. You're just doing that to keep those hooks pinned. Again, fishing Lake Winnipeg, you're dealing with a lot of times larger than average size fish, so big, bonier mouths. And a lot of the baits you're going to be using are going to have larger hooks on them as well. So you don't need to really finesse them as much as you may fish walleyes back in the States, around the Midwest when you're talking winter. So having those bigger fish with bigger hooks, you want to make sure you get a really good hook set on there. That's why I typically like to use something like a medium heavy, even a heavy action rod on up at Lake Winnipeg. But those longer rods are going to allow you to absorb those head shakes a lot more and keep those barbless hooks pinned from the beginning of the fight all the way till that fish is at the end and at the end of your hole. Typically when I go to Lake Winnipeg, I'm pretty much always using braid, typically minimum 10-pound test, sometimes as heavy as 15, typically running a 10 to 15-pound fluoro leader. Lake Winnipeg has a little bit of stain to it, so not necessarily doing it for the invisibility factor, just helping give you a little bit more shock absorption. Fluoro has a little bit of stretch compared to braid has none. And again, just keeping your baits moving right, that stiffness of fluoro can be helpful with dealing with a lot of these heavier baits. Now, when we are talking the business end for Lake Winnipeg, typically your day can be classified as, was it a rattle bait or was it a spoon day? Going up with both and a selection of both is going to help you in the long run. Go with multiple sizes of each in each class as well. I know everyone thinks Lake Winnipeg, and me, myself, I enjoy using the large oversized baits because, again, you're trying to kind of maybe sort through some of those smaller than average fish and try to catch that fish of a lifetime. But fishing's fishing anywhere you go, and walleyes are walleyes anywhere you go. So when you deal with maybe some cold front conditions or some higher pressure, those fish might get a bit more lethargic, more sluggish. You might want to downsize. Now, the difference between downsizing other places and downsizing Lake Winnipeg is when you downsize Lake Winnipeg, you're typically still going to be using either your upsized baits back home or larger than average size baits than what you're used to. Now, when I talk about downsizing a rattle bait, I might be going from, an ounce to a 7/8 ounce rattle bait down to something that maybe weighs more around around a quarter, or instead of having a 4 or 5 inch rattle bait, something that's more along that 2.5 inch size. Again, something that has that aggression to call fish in, draw fish in from a distance, but that smaller profile might get you a few more bites on those tougher days. Like we said before, Lake Winnipeg is a bucket list destination, and for a lot of good reasons. A lot of people make the trip, and whether you're making the trip either for the first time or you're a seasoned veteran, stop into the Fargo Shields, talk to some of the experts we got here. We got quite a few guys that enjoy making the trip multiple times a year. Stop in, talk to us. Hopefully we can give you the latest fishing report as far as weather conditions, lures and tackle recommendations. We'll give you the information you need to help calm your nerves and give you the confidence when you're making your trip north of the border.